For centuries, carp, and particularly carp fishing, has enthralled and captivated anglers throughout Europe and Asia. From the supernatural beasts lurking in holiday lakes across France and Thailand, to the mystical enigmas residing within the mecca of carp fishing that is Red Meyers's. Their wily intelligence and, at times, infuriating elusiveness, drives carp fishermen to consistently return to their favorite waters in search of a new PB. The relationship between carp and Chinese anglers began 4,000 years ago, when Chinese first noticed carp in its native Yellow River, which runs from west to east through central China. Each spring carp make a spawning run all the river's tributaries, a long and arduous journey requiring fish to leap barriers and burrow up rapids to reach their destination. The Chinese, admiring this dogged display of courage and perseverance, adopted the carp as a symbol for strength and nobility. They also begun raising carp for food and ornamental displays. As is still done today, certain species of carp were held in rearing ponds outside homes and fattened for the table. Other species were bred to exaggerate colors that made them attractive pets in garden ponds. Records show carp first being introduced to the ponds of Austrian nobility in 1227, however, there are also records of carp being transferred to Greece, Italy during the Roman Empire a millennium before, and the writings of European monks show that throughout the Middle Ages carp were raised in the ponds at castles and monasteries. Dr. Frank M. Panek wrote in Carp in North America, that carp might possibly be native to portions of Western Europe, and are probably indigenous to the eastern part of the continent. There is no evidence to support the common belief that the carp was introduced to Europe from an original range in China. That the spread of carp throughout Europe increased during the Middle Ages is accepted by all carp experts. Nobility and clergy demanded meals of carp. The fish were held in ponds in the cellars of monasteries, whether they were fattened with milk and bread until killed for the table. In 1876, Dr. Spencer F. Baird of the Smithsonian Institution, head of the newly formed United States Commission of Fish and Fisheries, began receiving requests from citizens for carp. By 1880, the commission was getting 2,000 letters a year. These requests were timely. Fisheries Commissioner Baird was looking for fish to import into the new country. During the mid-1800s, native fish were being netted by the millions of pounds from the Illinois, Mississippi, and Ohio rivers and shipped to markets in the burgeoning cities along the East Coast. At the time, fish were seen as a resource like timber and coal to be harvested and sold. In 1871, President Grant appointed a fish commission to oversee the country's fisheries. Its first task was to find a way to shore the flagging fishing stocks. Baird wrote to Europe and received information on a variety of fish, notably the carp. He was impressed with what was being done in Europe, where carp was a cash crop rivaling grain in sales and protein content. In his 1874 report, Baird wrote that the common carp would thrive better than most native fish because it fed on vegetable matter. In 1877, the commission imported 345 common, mirror, and leather carp and placed them in ponds in Baltimore, where they were raised by Maryland's fish commissioner, Ferguson. The next year, some of these fish were transferred to ponds near the Capitol in Washington. The U.S. government can't be credited with the first introduction of carp to the continent, however. By the time the bureaucrats finally got around to importing carp, a citizen of the Golden Bear State had been raising the species in his backyard for 5 years. Julius A. Poppe, of Sonoma, California, had taken matters of fish farming into his own hands and in 1872 had gone to a commercial operation in Rheinfeld, Germany to purchase 83 carp. When his ship reached California in August of that year, only 5 carp had survived. But they were hardy survivors. The handful of 6-inch fish he placed in a pond at his home had grown to 16 inches long and produced over 3,000 young by the following May. The spread of carp in North America had begun.